Hello, and welcome to another episode of Houston. We have a podcast. On today's episode, we are going to be discussing The Batman. And here with us is new guest, Christoph. Christoph, welcome to the show. As we always do with new guests, to introduce yourself to our audiences so they know kind of what perspectives you have, who you are, where you're coming from. We ask our new guests to introduce themselves with a movie character and a movie that represents them as a person for any reason that you so choose. So what have you chosen to introduce yourself as?
Hey guys, happy to be here. Again, kind of wish I got some heads up on this question, so thanks for that right now. If I had to choose one, given to the minimal amount of times that I've been at a cinema, I guess in the last 2 years or so, let's just go with a recent example. And I'm going to go ahead and pick the Denis Villeneuve version of Dune that recently came out, along with Oscar Isaac's character of Duke Leto. Everything about him is extremely relatable in that he tries to be extremely practical. Everything he says is technically correct, but nobody listens to him. And much like his runtime within that movie, he likes to jump out of social situations as soon as possible, especially at times where Timothée Chalamet becomes the subject of conversation.
That is an impressive amount of analysis there with short time to prep for that. So kudos to you, sir.
That was a very good ad lib.
Thank you. Most of it was motivated by hatred.
I will mention to our audience as part of the reason that this episode came to be is you listened to our episode of Dune where we were shit talking Dune, and you said, "Hey guys, I got a movie that I want to shit talk." That being The Batman. So maybe I'll start there before we get into the whole conversation. What's a quick sentence or two thoughts on just high level? What are your views of The Batman before we get into detailed discussion? Christoph, why don't you go first?
High level discussion, I guess. If I had to think of one sentence maybe to summarize the movie, it's mentally ill rich man decides that he could have avoided the entire plot of this by going to work for one day and making sure that his shithole city actually gets some of the money that his parents set aside for it. Aside from that, genuinely thought it was a fairly enjoyable action movie from start to finish, and I appreciated, I guess, the new take on Batman. But much like the extra hour and a half that could have probably been cut from the runtime, a lot of it was kind of needless.
That was a lot nicer than I was expecting.
Yeah.
We'll get there. A lot of vengeance jokes to be said.
Paulo, how about yourself?
Angsty teenage Batman. I'll keep it at one sentence because there's lots to say. I don't know. I'm very curious as to hear more about your description, Christoph. I feel like a lot of that passed me by because just the bloated runtime, I could feel myself tuning in and out. Even the second time watching the movie just for this at home, you'd think I'd be able to focus a little bit more, but no, it couldn't really capture my attention. I don't know. I wasn't compelled. And to be fair, the first time around when I actually watched it in the theater, it was probably one of the worst theater experiences that I've had so far. Because there was a group of teenage boys walking and dancing around the theater. I think they had snuck in or something and they were just waiting for their mom to pick them up. And it completely took me out of it. But that aside, I still didn't really enjoy it.
For myself, I feel like I'm more aligned to Christoph than I thought I would be. There's a lot that I liked and there's a lot that was really bad. So I'm not going to say that this movie was absolute garbage, and I'm not going to say that I absolutely loved it. I kind of have to talk about it in piecemeal because, again, some things really, really good. Some things are just laughably bad. So that said, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say, it sounds like we all have the same perspective. That's not fun.
Well, so I was going to suggest as a starting point for the conversation, let's get out all the bad things first, because there's a lot of easy jokes to make about this movie. So let's make them all. What for you, I think each of us had things we liked and things we didn't like. So for you guys, what were the things that you really hated the most with this?
Okay, maybe to start it off, this will speak to one of my biggest complaints about the movie. Like, I just watched it last night, and I don't really remember anything enough that I cared about enough to even hate on, which is weird for me. I don't know. Like, I guess we'll starting with Robert Pattinson, who I actually like as an actor. I enjoy seeing him act, but I feel like him. I don't know if it was him as Batman or just Batman in this movie. There was like, it felt like there was like barely any Batman, if that makes any sense. Like, it was very standard. And
but that's true of any
like,
Batman movie. Like, Batman is the least interesting character of any Batman movie.
Which I mean, sure, but like, I don't know. I really don't know how to describe this. Like, it's almost like it wasn't a Batman movie. No, this is tough. Someone, I don't know.
No, I kind of get where you're coming from that one. In that, well, like, just from a dialogue perspective alone, I'm kind of torn on Robert Pattinson, because sometimes I think it's just like, wow, this guy put in a ridiculously good performance. But there are other times that I feel like he's been playing the exact same character in every single movie that he's been in, which is sort of like a dark, angsty teenage heartthrob, minus whatever the fuck was going on in The Lighthouse, because I still don't really understand what the point of that movie was. But for the most part, like, the thing that kind of caught me off guard was, I guess, like, in the advertising to this movie, as they were building it up, it was billed as this sort of like Batman more as a detective, and it's going to be a lot more of like an on the ground story of how he interacts with the cops. And like, there is that from time to time. But I kind of like, if I could stomach myself to sit through it again for 3 hours, I would want to record like the amount of actual lines of dialogue that Batman has in the movie, because I don't think it's over 60 at any point, and most of it is grunting, saying the words vengeance, or talking about a flying rat at multiple occasions.
He's like a caveman a little bit. Like, yeah. He's something like the first detective part, when he's in the car, like the mayor's car, and he's like, thumb drive. Try this.
So I actually really liked that it felt like a film noir detective movie. At least it felt like they were trying to go for that. What I really didn't like is, like, there were certain points where it seems like they didn't know how to resolve something, and so they were just like, here's some dialogue. Here's a recording of someone saying exactly what you need them to say to help the plot move forward. And it was just like, good, really terrible dialogue, and then it would just try to like pick up and move on. It's like, okay, hold on there. You can't just drop that bomb and just walk away from it. So there's just like, I like the idea of a Batman film noir movie, and like when you were saying it doesn't feel like a Batman movie, for me that was a good thing. Of like, it felt like a detective movie, and that he just happened to also be Batman and punch people at times. But it's just that the detective work was really lazy and coincidental. Like when the police officer points out to him that it's like a tool to cut the carpet. It's like, come on, you can put a little more effort into revealing that.
So I was thinking about this. It's funny that you bring that up, because I was expecting you to be defending this a lot more. So I had this ready for you. And I remember thinking back to our conversation about A Quiet Place. And you were saying how like it was so obvious, like on the whiteboard, they have like written on the whiteboard, what is their weakness? And then the exact same thing, like basically the exact same thing in the Batman, when like he like after Alfred is attacked, he's like, he spray paints on his floor like, the sins of my father, like renewal is a lie. And I was like, yeah, that's a little on the nose for like the world's greatest detective.
It kind of felt a little bit like 2003 Daredevil at times, to be honest, like right down to the angsty soundtrack and like the It's Always Sunny, like crazy man wall that he had in that scene. But kind of like to jump on your point there, Carson, at least like how lazy the detective aspect was for it. I also don't really think you can say that Batman actually did much in the way of detective work in this movie. He kind of has very little agency, I think, throughout. Like in terms of like moving the case along, or at least trying to crack the Riddler murders, most of it is kind of just landed into his lap, and he like interprets an envelope that magically popped out of the sky because Riddler apparently decides to go rob a Carlton Cards before committing his crimes. And like the only actual clue I think that he breaks is towards the end, prior to the I don't know what your guys' policy is on like spoilers during the podcast. Do you like talk about
spoiler?
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, like right up to the I guess like the school shooting scene at the rally. Like I think that was the only part that he actually like cracked a part of the case that wasn't just handed to him by Riddler himself.
Well, one of the reasons why I ended up being probably more disappointed than I should in this movie is because I thought it actually started quite well. The subtleties in the scene when he first walks in, and who is it, like the mayor or someone's been murdered, and you know the crime photographers are walking around and they're shooting pictures, and then he notices something, and then he like leans into it, and then he walks away, and then you see the crime photographer come up and like be like, "Oh, I missed that," and then takes a picture, and it's like, for me, that's the type of thing that's like you can hint at him being a better detective than the crime scene detectives with little things like that. And I was like, okay, just keep doing stuff like that. You don't need to like do this like fancy stuff. It's just like little nuanced stuff like that. But then they had very few of that. They kind of gave that up to the more like, here's your clue, Mr. Batman, and then you just keep going.
I did kind of appreciate that they didn't go sort of the same way that the Christian Bale movies did, where like the detective aspect was like Batman uses fancy piece of technology to crack the case. Because I always thought that kind of gave the movies like a weird authoritarian bent. It's like, no, we could have actually solved this sooner if the police just had like billions more in funding to create their own weird special technology.
I never made that connection while I was watching the Christian Bale Batmans. Well, I guess at least until the like the whole sonar part.
Surveillance and shit,
Yeah. But yeah, wow, interesting. I mean, it's still my favorite though. We can get into that later.
Yeah, the one that was on the fence for me was the whole like contact lens that's a camera. It's like outside of that being a silly piece of technology, like I liked the use of it because it was like, okay, you need to put this on someone you don't know. They need to walk into a setting, and it's like that's investigation work. You're going into kind of another environment. You're talking to the people. So it's like, okay, you're actually doing detective work. It's not like Batman jumping into the room and punching a bunch of people, except he does do that like a few scenes later. So I'll forgive the use of like silly technology and stuff like that when it actually makes the story more interesting. But I felt like they hinted at stuff like that, but they never really used it properly.
So on the subject of realism, I guess, in a Batman movie, does this guy have like bones made of adamantium or something? Because just that one scene, well, I guess like there's a lot of things to break down about the car chase scene with the Penguin to begin with, which is first apparently the Batmobile is a muscle car now, so I'm guessing he's guest starring in the next Fast and Furious. But I think there's one scene where he just like falls off a bridge or something, gets sideswiped by a bus, and then like dribbles over by 3 blocks or so, and then just gets up and pretends like nothing happens. And then proceeds to, like, I guess, kind of cut a storm of carnage through the city to just try to catch one guy in a car.
I'm okay with that. Because one thing I liked about this movie is it didn't feel the need to be an origin story where it's trying to justify what his suit is. You kind of just go in from the beginning being like, he's got some type of really powerful suit that's protecting him. Like, he's getting shot in, like, the chest a bunch of times and he takes no damage. And so I'm willing to have a suspension of disbelief when it comes to, like, okay, he's got a suit that protects him to an unusual degree, and because that car chase I liked it, and it's like, okay, that's fine. So I'm not going to get too picky on that one.
I mean, I don't know, I wouldn't mind a little sequel hook of just talking about like the body count in that scene alone, because I'm pretty sure he like wiped out half of Gotham's civilian population on that highway.
I do like that in the Ben Affleck Batman, everyone's like, oh my god, Batman killed somebody, and this one they're just like, we just don't give a fuck anymore. He just kills as many people as he wants. But going back to the point, like, I really like that this was an in-between of an origin story and like a kind of a fully fledged hero. Like, usually, you know, you keep having the origin stories, and I'm glad they didn't do that again because we don't need to see another Batman origin story. But it's almost like by the end of an origin story, they are full hero character that they're going to be, and there's no more development after that. It's like they're basically OP. And I like that this movie was him as a new Batman who has the costume, you know, it's not the origin story, but he's not good at what he's doing yet. He's young, he's making mistakes, and it's like, I feel like that's something we haven't seen in the movies at least yet. And so I liked that kind of fresh perspective on the character that gives him room to grow in future movies.
I appreciate that too, but I also found it kind of weird because it seemed like they were jumping between like new Batman versus like still, I don't know, he's still like that symbol, or like that he scares all the criminals just because his like sign is in the sky.
Great scene, by the way.
It was, yeah.
Does not match what they want to do with the character, but I thought that was a great scene.
Exactly, because they mentioned like him and Gordon were talking at one point, and he's like, "You've been at this for 2 years or something like that, like, and you don't trust me or something." And but at the same time, he's still not particularly like good at anything. And it's like, I get you're trying to do the thing where he's like new Batman and he's like still learning, but I don't know. Maybe I'm expecting too much. Isn't like 2 years a long time to be going at this? And
yeah, because he runs into those like punks in the subway, and they're like, "Who are you supposed to be?"
And they
it's
don't
like,
know who he is. Yeah,
it's like, is he well known? Is every criminal afraid of him, or do they not know who he is? I don't like. They never explain this yet.
yeah. But then I will say, like, it's good. It's not. It's interesting, or like I like how they tie it up at the end, like with when he finally meets Riddler and he's like talking to him in the jail, and he says something about how like, oh, you inspired me because all you need is like fear and like a little bit of violence, and that's like how he's like accomplishing what he's doing when it's so he's like taking Batman's model, and then Batman finally realizes like maybe I shouldn't take that approach by the end.
Yeah, I think like a common complaint that at least I saw in terms of online comments was that usually for most Batman movies, you try to have a bit of a balance, I guess, between like the Batman and the Bruce Wayne characters, or just show like the alter ego does exist. Whereas in this movie, it's pretty much just exclusively Gerard Way and Batman, and with very little actually said in between. But I guess like the entire point of the movie is kind of just building up to the idea that like he kind of has to learn to also be Bruce Wayne and can't just like mindlessly devote himself to beating on criminals all the time. Although I will say I don't think that point came off particularly well, since again most of the problems in the movie are solved with violence.
Or yeah, or at all, because like it's one conversation with Alfred and over cufflinks, and then that's it.
Yeah. Can we also just talk about he actually said the expression "You're not my dad" to his like, yeah.
So speaking of the inconsistencies of a movie, here is something I was thinking about, and it'll be interesting because they've greenlit the second one, so none of this is going to come out for a long time. But I was thinking about two movies when I was kind of seeing how this movie was a bit of a mess. One being The Last Jedi, which is a movie that, you know, Rian Johnson, very talented director, had full control over that movie, but it was an absolute mess because of just who he was at working in like a big production or big blockbuster studio with Star Wars. The other being the most recent Fantastic Four movie with Josh Trank, where it's like half the movie is one thing and the other half is like very obvious the studio just recut it and did whatever they want with it. And so when I see that certain parts of this movie are good and then certain parts are just completely fall off a map, is it because Matt Reeves had full control over this movie and just, you know, he should not be making this type of big blockbuster movie because he's a talented director? Or did he make a movie and then the studio tried to cut a bunch of stuff in and didn't realize that it didn't make sense for the vision of what he was trying to accomplish?
I don't know. I don't think I got that vibe, especially when you bring up Fantastic Four, because that is just like
that's a very obvious, that's the extreme end of it.
Yeah, blatant, that is like the most extreme, and I can't get my mind out of that now. But I don't know. I didn't really get that vibe because it was all pretty constant for me.
It was a constant tone. Like,
yeah,
in Fantastic Four, you can tell which scenes are which because like the characters are dressed differently and it's just like completely different tone. And like even in The Last Jedi, like it's kind of just weird because the tone changes completely mid-movie. This one, it feels like the same movie. Like it feels like Matt Reeves did everything, but it almost feels like the studio cut it up at the script form and then said, here, go make this thing.
So I did feel a little bit like that when it comes to the third act of the movie. And I'm not entirely sure if this is just down to studio things or just the runtime kind of working against the movie's plot by itself. But it did kind of feel like the movie itself really, really got sidetracked with the Falcone plotline along with Catwoman before eventually realizing in the last half hour, like, oh shit, we actually haven't solved the whole Riddler problem that we introduced this movie with. So it almost felt like the in-between segments, I guess, like up to like, well, uncovering like who the rat was and the whole mafia plotline. Some elements of that did feel a little bit like studio interference. I will also say that like the tone of the movie and how Riddler is treated isn't entirely consistent all the way through because like, yes, he's nuts and they got that whole dichotomy thing going of just like, oh, him and Bruce are both orphans, but look how like one interpretation just radically left them into different directions. But you could, I think, reasonably confidently say that up until the, I guess, like massacre segment at the end, the audience is kind of looking at Riddler and being like, well, I don't necessarily disagree with a lot of the shit that he's doing, just so much his methodology. Whereas at that point, it's like he goes full villain tilt, and it just feels like you're dealing with another sort of routine superhero movie.
Yeah, which is too bad because I really, really like Paul Dano, and I feel like he could play that character really well, but then it's like he went off a cliff at the end, and it was like, who is this character? Like, I don't understand. They should have. I like long movies. I defend longer movies, like the Snyder Cut. I really liked. This movie was too long. They should have ended it like 45 minutes sooner.
Does the Snyder Cut count when half its runtime is just from all the action scenes being in slow motion?
Yes, slow motion's fine.
I mean, I'm not going to go down that. I was just going to say like 300 was the same style, but it was like half, like a third of the runtime of the Snyder Cut. But
I think going back to Christoph, what you were saying about those kind of two different stories, if you have like the Falcone and Catwoman and then the Riddler story, I think I understood what they were trying to go for, and I think there is a way to weave those two stories together and have it, end at the climax of like figuring out that that's what the Riddler's whole plan was to get him out into the light so that he could shoot him and all that. But it was sloppy. Like they felt like two different stories where it's like you really could have made that the same story.
Yeah, it's almost to the point that like if they had ended the movie with Riddler's arrest, like after shooting Falcone, and he didn't have like a super secret master plan right after, it would have kind of created a more cogent narrative. But then after that, he just turned into mass murdering psychopath for pretty much no reason. But well, not no reason, like it's consistent.
Yeah,
but.
That's where it feels like a studio note though, because it's like that feels like that was what the end of the movie was supposed to be. But then the studio was like, you can't have Batman lose. You need to have some other big action scene at the end.
But he's still kind of lost.
Yeah, like the city's like half annihilated at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, and at that point, like to your point, with the whole length of the runtime, like it completely lost me. Like, this is usually the part that I enjoy the most. Like Carson very well knows, like the big action scene at the end is usually what I look forward to. But like at this point in the movie, I was just kind of like checked out.
That scene at the end, I was just like, oh no, white supremacist gun nuts on the internet are coming to get you.
Which I spent enough time on Reddit that like I don't need to see it in a movie.
If anything, I would kind of go in the opposite direction. Like if they were planning on putting that as a plot element, I guess maybe this lends to the idea that it was a studio bit. Maybe like telegraph it a little bit beforehand if you want to create some sort of moral about online radicalization, not just towards the end be like, oh, by the way, the Riddler had a chat room and people were listening.
Yeah, it really comes out of left field. Like they did not preface that in any way.
Yeah, which is kind of like leading me to the idea that I think the movie was supposed to go in the direction of moral ambiguity, which is just like, yes, Riddler did something horrendous, but he did it at the time where like Batman proved that the justice system was actually working, and like the 5 non-corrupt cops in Gotham City were actually going to arrest the guy. And then it was supposed to just end off there to kind of like leave it, I guess, on a bleak note. And then the studio just got involved and said, no, we need like an actual superhero ending here.
Yeah, I think Batman is a good character and a good IP to talk about kind of a ends justify the means type thing, because like that's kind of the Batman character in and of itself. So I feel like that would have been the appropriate subject matter to do a Batman movie about. But it just feels like studios don't want to do anything with Batman. They just want to give you the same thing that you've seen before, because there's so many interesting things you could do, especially considering, the whole thing about Batman in the comics is he is completely ineffective. The longer he exists in Gotham, the worse it gets because he's inspiring violence and hatred. But they can't, like, Batman is the only working DC character right now. They can't turn him, like, look at like the bad side of him. I think the one kind of thing they're doing against that is they've started to turn Thomas Wayne into a bad character in a bunch of movies now. Like in The Joker, he was a shitty character, and now in this one, they're like, oh, he's killing journalists. And it's like, okay, I like that they're picking apart the whole like perfect Thomas Wayne thing a bit, because that's very different than like the Christian Bale Batmans, where it's like his father was like, perfect philanthropist type guy. So I like that part of it at least, but I feel like they need to go so much further with the character.
If anything, I'd say actually that could be a good retread of the Christian Bale movies, because it's kind of what I appreciated at least about The Dark Knight. I know like a lot of it gets overshadowed with just how good Heath Ledger was in that movie and the general undertone of insanity there. But like the one moral that I kind of wish that they had delved in deeper to, at least in that trilogy, was that in the first movie, like Batman's dealing primarily with mobsters and like relatively on the ground criminals. But because he shows up to that city, that's when shit just goes really off the rails and like crazy demon clowns start showing up. Like that's something to maybe pursue. Just be like, you're kind of having a bad influence on the place, man. Like maybe just go spend your money instead.
And they do have the one line at the end of the Christian Bale or the first Dark Knight movie, where it's like escalation. You know, cops get bulletproof vests, and you know, criminals get armor-piercing rounds. And it's like that's all you need. And then like, you've kind of hinted it to your audience, and then you can let kind of like the results of the story kind of tell that story, as opposed to being really heavy-handed with it. So. Yeah, not that I want to get into a conversation of how good the Christopher Nolan Batman movies are, because everyone knows that.
Do you think you could draw a parallel between like maybe Batman needing to stop being Batman because he's making things worse, versus in real life maybe they should stop making Batman movies?
Like, so it became a meta narrative.
Like I don't know. I think I have a bit of a Batman fatigue at this point.
Well, they did a bit of like that with the Jurassic World movie, where they made a story basically inspired like about how, you know, corporations get greedy with blockbuster studios and all that. And then Jurassic World ended up being super successful, and no one really caught that that's what they were trying to make a satire of. But the Batman movie I'd love to see is one where Batman is not the main character, because anytime he's the main character, you kind of have to make him the good character. What I want to see them make is like a Nightwing movie where, you know, he teams up with Batman as Robin, and you know, because he thinks Batman's super cool and he's making a big difference, and then he realizes that Batman's kind of shitty and not really effective at what he does, and so he kind of comes off on his own and then becomes Nightwing instead of Robin. It's like I'd like to see that story, but I don't think I can ever see a studio making a Batman movie where Batman is not the main character.
Yeah, Nightwing also just doesn't really, I guess, have the same draw. And if I'm being honest, the costume doesn't really do him any favors on that one. The movie that I always kind of did want to see was more of like, I guess, I don't know how to describe it, except for like a Batman movie, but where Batman is not the main focus. So like you maybe just go through like the Gotham officers and just what it's like to actually deal with him from a third person perspective. And I was kind of hopeful, at least with like the teasers that they left towards the end for the sequels, because I think the storyline, I guess, for anybody who followed Batman comics way back when, is no man's land towards the end, where like Gotham's just like an anarchy zone and shit just kind of forms like its own little social order there. Like that would be sort of like a fascinating thing to take, where like you do a Gotham City centered movie rather than a Batman one.
I don't think they're capable of taking that risk. They have no other superheroes that are working for them right now, and so they just need to keep churning out Batman movies.
I blame whoever directed The Man of Steel, because I can't remember off the top of my head right now.
It's Zack Snyder. I was gonna bring up Man of Steel because I don't think Man of Steel is a good movie. I'm not going to defend it here, but what I hated about Man of Steel at that time is people hated on it, and it became popular to hate on, and so people started saying that anything that Man of Steel did is a bad thing, and no future movie should do it. I like darker superhero movies. I like the more like drama side of like the first like hour of Man of Steel is like his background, and it's not like the costume. I like the violent nature of it, and so for me, I hate that they kind of just associated everything that was with it as bad, and you should not do these. And then we started getting Marvel movies where it's colorful and jokey and just like the same thing over and over again. And so that's why I wanted to separate in this conversation the difference between the things I didn't like with this movie with the things that I did. Because like, for example, I love the production design of this movie. Just like the Gotham that they set up that feels modern and at the same time gothic. Like I wish that they kept that going a bit more. The whole idea of superheroes that aren't perfect in their roles and still learning what they're doing and like understanding like what the impact of their work is. I hope that people don't shit on this movie and just be like, well, DC doesn't work, don't do dark stuff again, let's tell more jokes. Because that's what happened with Man of Steel, and while I don't like Man of Steel, I think there is some things that they did that were quite good.
I forgot we still have to talk about the good stuff that we liked about Batman.
I've mentioned most of the good stuff already. I don't have much more to say.
I mean, we've been very forgiving so far, I think.
I thought this was going to be a lot more of like a this shit talking session, if I'm being honest. But...
well, then to get right into it, then Colin Farrell acted the shit out of the Penguin. It's not a very hot take.
I'm not the only one who didn't realize that was him until you like looked at the cast list afterwards, right? Because like the makeup department deserves all the Oscars for that role.
Yeah, 100%.
So I knew it was him because I knew about it ahead of time. But like, I don't know. Everyone's raving about him, and I'm like, it's okay. Like, are people impressed just because of the makeup, or did he actually give an impressive performance? And it's like he was okay. He's fine.
I think largely because of the fact that he's completely unrecognizable, but also playing this like just completely. I don't know. I've never seen Colin Farrell play anything like that before. He's usually, I don't know. The only other thing that I can think of is in like Horrible Bosses when he was like the fat cokehead dipshit son. Like I think he did really well.
Yeah, I thought he acted against type like reasonably well. On account of the fact that just like it's not the type of role you'd ever associate with him, where he's usually like tall, dark, brooding, and handsome. But like I guess the thing that I kind of appreciate about his performance is that I think it was kind of the only real moment of levity in the film, because otherwise like the production design is great and like the griminess of Gotham is something you appreciate, but after a while it just gets like a little bit too grim and you're like, I don't really care about what happens to these people. So just having those occasional bits in between where he's trying to, I guess, like get a laugh out of the audience, like when they're interrogating him and then he just basically gives them an introductory lesson to Spanish, like I honestly just burst out laughing in the middle of the theater.
I feel like you guys haven't seen enough Colin Farrell movies, because I feel like he's gone away from that stereotype probably like 10, 20 years ago. And he still plays it every once in a while, but I'm thinking of movies like Killing of a Sacred Deer, The Lobster, like Seven Psychopaths, I think another one where he's kind of been against the grain. Like he's been showing that for a while now, and I'm glad that he's had like a bigger platform to display that, because I do think he is a pretty good actor who kind of got put into kind of that typical leading man role in Hollywood where you have to be like the good-looking, charming guy, and it's like that's not what he does well. He does crazy way better. In Bruges is another one where he has a really good that type of role.
Well, yeah, like that type of role, I feel like I included that in the stuff that we've all seen from him before. Like just because, so I'm completely separating Penguin from any of that, which is why I enjoyed it more, I guess.
The one that I was actually surprised at in terms of performance was John Turturro, because when I first saw that he was going to be Falcone, I was like, really? But he actually did quite well. He's not playing the Jesus anymore.
Oh my god! I'm complete. I complete opposite. Like I have the complete opposite perspective there. Like when I see John Turturro, I can only think of Transformers. Wow. I couldn't take him serious at all.
So we have like radically different, I guess, like first impressions of John Turturro, but somehow we all wound up at the same place, because my mental image of him is the villain in the Zohan, and I just I take him seriously on this one. But it's really good. Like don't get me wrong, I thought he killed it, like trying to get a nice serious undertone to like the whole mob boss image, but it's not anything that I would ever associate him with.
I mean, that's basically like whatever role you pick, like all three of those, he kind of plays that same thing. He's that kind of like eccentric, silly character. He's done like a few good ones. I'm thinking Barton Fink, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? If you've seen those, like he does really good performances in those. But for the most part, like he's that kind of silly character. So it was nice to see like a subtle performance out of him.
My main compliment for this movie, actually, I would say, is that I thought a lot of the roles were pretty well casted, as generally down. Like Paul Dano is a great actor in pretty much anything that he does. Andy Serkis as Alfred was surprisingly entertaining, considering like you usually associate that role with like smug British man, like your Jeremy Irons or your Michael Caine, I guess, in older movies. Although I did think that like he was a little bit robbed in terms of having very little runtime, and then they basically just shunt him to the side halfway through the movie. Yeah. Zoe Kravitz, I mean, like the Catwoman plotline honestly could have been cut from the entire movie, and I don't think he would have lost all that much, but I thought she did reasonably well. And because you mentioned Killing of a Sacred Deer, Carson, like I not to go back on the negatives of this movie, but Richard Keough for that one scene in the prison where he's, well, I guess like this is a spoiler heavy zone, I guess, but where he's playing the Joker, I guess, and talking to the Riddler. I just want to point out that how sick I am of like every single Batman movie, just tossing in the Joker at every given opportunity. I get that he has name brand appeal, but like 90 years worth of villains to pick from, do we have to go back to him every single time?
Yeah, one thing that so the most recent the Suicide Squad movie, bringing out the Polka Dot Man and making him into like a character that everyone loved, I think just shows that there are so many more characters that you can, you know, dive into with the Batman lore that you could make interesting. There is absolutely no reason to bring the Joker back in. I am not at all interested in seeing Barry Keoghan as the Joker, or however you pronounce his name.
I think called Richard. Whoops.
I like him as an actor. He does some good things, but it's like, yeah, exact same place. Like, we don't need to see the Joker. We can do many other things.
Well, he's finally sold out. I think he's derailed his momentum of like independent, interesting movies, and boom, he's the Joker.
Well, he also did what was that Marvel one that nobody watched?
Oh my God, Eternals! I forgot about
Eternals.
that.
Right. Oh dear Lord, yeah. That movie felt like a fever dream. It was like
I liked that more than I thought I would. But that was also one that I walked into with like less than zero expectations. So, but no, like this, like there's a lot of indie movie actors in this, like Paul Dano, John Turturro, Barry Keoghan, like even Robert Pattinson's been indie movies for the last like decade or so. Like they put together a really good cast, which is why I was looking forward to this movie in the same place. And I think for the most part, a lot of them did really good performances up until they didn't. But it's like 90% of the performances is good, and then like one bad scene for a lot of the characters. I would have liked to see a bit more out of James Gordon. Kind of made him a smaller character than they should have.
Yeah, he felt a little bit more like a sidekick, I guess, rather than a supporting character, considering that him and Batman are kind of supposed to be at odds in a lot of ways, but it just kind of felt like he was the only cop on his side at some point.
That was one that felt similar to, you know, in Dune, there's like pretty big name actors who get like a minute or two of screen time, and you're like, okay, they're saving these people for a future movie. And it seems like, okay, you got a good actor for Commissioner Gordon. You got Penguin as like a good character or good actor setting up for the future. Andy Serkis, it's like, okay, he didn't get a lot of screen time, but obviously if they make more movies, he's going to be in it. So it's almost like they cast them for the universe, not so much for this movie, but to like have them do something better down the road. All right, let's talk about best Batmans all time. Where does Robert Pattinson rank in your let's refine it to movie Batman characters, theatrical movies?
This is Adam West erasure, and I won't stand for it, but okay.
I think it's really hard to rate Robert Pattinson as Batman, because to Christoph's point earlier, you barely saw any of him in a weird way. Like I feel like I didn't see enough of him as not just Batman, like Bruce Wayne, just the character in general. I felt like I can't, I don't know. It was, maybe that means it was bad.
So when we're judging like quality of Batman here, are we talking purely based on like performance, or are we considering aesthetics and like all the other things that you would normally associate with Batman, like how nice the suit is or something like that?
Overall?
Yeah, I was going to say like more performance side of things, but I think that's like a separate conversation of, I don't know, suit design if you want.
I'm saying I like this suit in this one. I thought it was a little bit sleeker rather than the Ben Affleck, like I'm wearing body armor at all times type of look that they were going for in the previous one.
I like the Ben Affleck Batman suit. Not so much when they put a lot of gadgets on him in Justice League, but I think in Batman vs. Superman, like just kind of, I don't know, more of that body armor type look that kind of seems like if a billionaire did want to dress up as a Batman, like that's probably the type of suit he would wear. Whereas like as much as, you know, everyone's probably going to say Christian Bale is like their favorite Batman because he's, I think, pretty clearly the best, both like Bruce Wayne and Batman. Suit, I didn't really care much in those movies. But he does play the Bruce Wayne and the Batman probably the best out of anybody.
So let's just get that out of the way because that was my hot take choice, Christian Bale. Let's speed past that and talk about the other ones then. I think George Clooney probably. I think maybe just dead last.
Dead last. Easily.
Were you about to say second?
No, not okay. Not like he's up there in the same way that like how can I what can I compare it to like. Just because it is completely ridiculous.
You're going to make the like, Wonder Woman 1984 argument for this.
Yeah, I was going to try not to use that, but so Christoph, for context, I really liked Wonder Woman 1984.
Oh, that's a hot take.
Yeah, because it was also completely ridiculous, and that just gives you a little bit of insight into what I like. But yeah, that's why George Clooney ranks pretty highly, because he had like Arnold, Mr. Freeze, Dr. Freeze, Mr. Freeze. Just all of that is hilarious.
I would say that, okay, maybe I'm being a little unfair on George Clooney here. I did think maybe he was probably the best Bruce Wayne because he just kind of exuded the best kind of like raw sexual energy that you'd expect for like a 40-year-old billionaire at the time. And maybe he was just weighed down a lot by his supporting cast. I actually can't remember who was it. Poison Ivy in that movie? That was Nicole Kidman, or am I hallucinating that?
Uma Thurman.
No, Uma Thurman. Yeah,
Uma Thurman. Right. Sorry, this was the Kill Bill generation. Completely forgot about that. But yeah, as Batman, I mean, it kind of suffered almost the same from this movie, where he just didn't really get a lot of screen time, and the screen time that he did, like he was basically mute. So I would put him dead last on that one.
Wait, who is dead last?
George Clooney. Easily.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I'd put him in. I like Val Kilmer, but Val Kilmer's probably down there as well. Probably more so because those movies are bad, less so than about him being bad. But I would put like George Clooney last, and then Val Kilmer second last, and then with Christian Bale first. That basically gives us Pattinson, Ben Affleck, and Michael Keaton as like 2, 3, 4. And then for those three, I would probably say, and this will probably be controversial, but Pattinson, then Affleck, then Keaton.
That is a hot take.
Maybe, like, I'll give Keaton the opportunity to change my opinion when The Flash comes out later this year because he's reprising his role and maybe like he might add a little bit more nuance to it. But like, I don't know. Everyone loved the '89 Batman movies, but for me, it was like okay.
I don't like it.
It's, you know, when you hear something and you're like, part of me just wants to just like completely revolt against that opinion, but I'm also trying to really struggle to find reasons to refute it now.
It's like, yeah, exactly. Like you disagree, but you can't really, like, the other options are Val Kilmer and George Clooney. I mean, for you. I mean, for me, it's easy. George Clooney is that I upgraded him to second. Pattinson, he's in a different list until I see the next Batman movie, because he doesn't exist as Batman yet to me. Are there maybe Lego Batman? Will Arnett, I'll put him third. I'm allowed to do that, right?
I guess he is theatrical movie, so
yeah.
Justice League cartoon Batman is technically, I guess, not in the same category, but I'd probably put him above everybody else. Actually, now that I think about it.
I wish that we could see Batman in the Justice League dynamic the way that they have Batman in the cartoon DC movies, because he's much more of like almost like a non-character, because he just doesn't trust anyone and he's leading, like he's kind of so like there's so much hatred and so much like you don't even care what Bruce Wayne is at that point. He's just like a force of nature. And I wish we could see that side of things, but it goes back to he needs to not be the main character, because in most of the Justice League cartoon movies, it's like Flash or Green Lantern are the main characters because they're the more like relatable to the audience, and then that kind of frees up Batman to be completely unrelatable and full of anger and hatred, which I think the character should be, but they keep wanting to make him a main character, and that's where Ben Affleck's character went wrong in Justice League, because they tried to have him be like Iron Man or Tony Stark or like that type of leading character that makes jokes and whatnot. And it's like, no, that's not Batman. Batman is not the main character. He's much more interesting when he's not the main character.
To be honest, between the Ben Affleck movies, when you watch Batman versus Superman and then his portrayal in Justice League, it almost is like you're watching two different characters in a way. Just because, like Batman v Superman, Batman, I thought could have been ridiculously interesting with a lot of the elements between like the dead Robin, whatever rampage apparently he went on where he killed like half of his villains. Like, there's a lot of interesting backstory there that you can leverage. And I thought Ben Affleck was at least like reasonably charming as Bruce Wayne, so you could kind of make him believable there. But then, yeah, as you said, when they got to Justice League, it's like, all right, let's make this formulaic and turn him into Robert Downey Jr. When I don't think Ben Affleck has a sense of humor.
Well,
so not really interested.
Did you watch the Snyder cut, or are you talking about theatrical cut of Justice League?
Theatrical cut, I could not make it through all Snyder cut. I literally just went to see the Dark Side scenes and skipped past the rest.
Because the theatrical Justice League, like, yeah, absolutely what you're saying, but it's like that's because someone else took over the franchise and said, okay, you are literally a different character now. Whereas in the Snyder cut, they have it a little bit closer to what it was in Batman versus Superman, but it's still... I think if Justice League was never made and it was just Batman versus Superman, I would probably hold Ben Affleck as number 2 behind Christian Bale. Like, even the good version of Justice League that I liked ruined that character a little bit.
I don't know if I'd rate him that high just because I consider that character wasted potential. I'm honestly just going to go ahead and just say Michael Keaton as second, only just because that was like him sort of in his prime, so he was a little bit more believable in the role. And I just enjoyed the like darker take on Batman in general. Like, the man just did not care about killing a man. Plus, if I'm being honest, and this is, I realize, the hottest take, if we're ever ranking villains, I would put the Jack Nicholson Joker over the Heath Ledger Joker. I realize that's going to get me like probably murdered in an alley at some point, but I'm going to say that I enjoyed their dichotomy a lot better than what was going on in The Dark Knight.
I think if they wanted to bring back the Joker, I wish they would have gone something closer to the Jack Nicholson one, because what they're looking like they're doing within this franchise is very much what Heath Ledger's was. And it's like, that's very, very different than what the character is in the comics. And it's like, okay, if you want to bring back the character, bring back the very different comic book character, where it's like the more sophisticated, charming type Joker who like contrasts with Batman a bit more. I don't need to see Batman with a cut mouth again. Like, it's that's been done as well as it can be done.
So to clarify, you're not advocating for the return of Jared Leto?
Oh, Jesus.
I forgot that he did that.
I wish I could forget that he did it. We should just let's make the Calendar Man movie already. I'm too I'm bored of Batman, and I realize this is very hypocritical of me to say as a Marvel fan, but I'm done. I think I'm done with Batman. I'm still gonna watch the second movie, obviously, but
so I feel a little Marvel right now. It's like,
I know
I'm still watching Moon Knight. I watched every episode the week it came out, even though I'm gonna shit on it.
Did that not get canceled? I feel like I saw something about that.
No,
Moon Knight
season came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They canceled making it a real movie about a real character, and they just turned it into a bunch of Disney bullshit again. So, sort of
tradition.
canceled.
I mean, I always found Moon Knight to be a strange concept, although to tie it back to the Batman stuff, it's like the subtext about Batman is supposed to be that he's mentally ill, whereas with Moon Knight, we're just like, yeah, we're going to make that overt and just accept it.
Yeah. At the risk of going too far down a different tangent completely from Batman, I think the more they get into characters that are like obscure, not even obscure, like Doctor Strange is not obscure, but I know nothing about like the stuff that they're bringing up now, Moon Knight and like the other Doctor Strange things of the like extended Marvel characters. I think it's a nice surprise that I don't know anything about them. So the reveals mean nothing to me, but it's just like I'm enjoying the movies.
So that's why I'm excited about the future of Marvel, because they have enough success that they can start doing weird stuff. It's like with DC, you can't take any risk because they're on the verge of like failing as a franchise right now. And so you need to do the most safe thing you can do. You need to hire like the hot young actors and actresses. You got to give the version of the character that everyone wants. You can't deviate from the formula. Whereas like when Marvel deviates, like they had enough success with Iron Man and whatnot that you could make a Guardians of the Galaxy movie and you could hire a weird director to do weird stuff and it can work. So I like that they can do some weird stuff, although the TV shows seem very similar. But I liked all the Loki stuff. It was very weird. It was very different. So at least they have that going for them, and I hope they get more weird. And I hope DC gets some success in the future so that we can get like a Justice League Dark movie at some point. But that seems like a far way away at this point.
If anything, I kind of hope they follow a similar tack, I guess, to the Marvel plotline, which is that you're going to have a movie and then maybe just some like derivative series that come out of it. The best version that I can think of was, I assume you guys both watched the new Suicide Squad one that James Gunn did as a Redux. And then they had the Peacemaker series as a follow-up to it, which had its own flaws, but honestly, I thought was hugely entertained by it from start to finish. John Cena is a dramatic actor now. I don't care what anyone says.
I mean, I agree with you on that, especially about John Cena, which I never thought I would ever say in a million years.
Him and Dave Bautista, I think, have been like my favorite sort of like career remasterings in the last 5 years, where both of them are like trying to do like semi-serious movies now. And meanwhile, you have like your typical like musclehead guys from like the last generation. They're just like, no, I'm doing comedy and nothing else.
Well, I find it funny when Dave Bautista comes out and he's like trying to make fun of The Rock and everything. It's like, okay, you guys just make action movies. I make serious movies. And it's like, sort of. You're like the muscle idiot of the serious movies, but
it was Dune. I wouldn't really call that a serious movie, really, at the start of it, but okay.
Well, Batista and Dune got the same amount of screen time as Pattinson and Batman, so
I don't understand what you guys are saying with like Pattinson not getting a lot of stuff. I thought he was in the movie quite a bit, but maybe I need to do a rewatch.
Maybe he was just so good at being in the shadows and being stealthy that we never saw him or heard him speak.
That's real method acting right there.
Any final thoughts on the Batman, or have we worn this to its end?
No, I mean, I realize we haven't really talked about Catwoman or Zoe Kravitz that much, but I don't have that much more to say.
I mean, my whole take on Zoe Kravitz's plotline was like, I think she did admirably well with what she was given. But again, the entire storyline just felt a little bit superfluous. Like you could have replaced her with, like, say, her roommate that got killed at the start of the season as the spy, I guess, in the club, and you could have achieved the same point. I also don't think you really needed, like, I might be reading too much into this, but at least my interpretation, at least of like the three main characters, if you will, from between like Batman, Riddler, and Catwoman, it's like, oh, they're all orphans, and let's see how they all turned out with like vastly different life circumstances. And I think you got enough of that between Bruce and Paul Dano, but you didn't really need to add Zoe Kravitz to it as well. And if I'm being honest, that costume was ridiculous.
But yeah, but she's a young hot actor. You got to put her in the movie. Like,
I didn't think the costume was ridiculous. It has its benefits. Like, honestly, if you take her out of the movie, there's no female character in this movie at all. So it's like, okay, maybe good from that perspective. The romance really could have been cut out. Like that, like it felt like Twilight teen romance at scenes. And that was one of the, like, when I was saying earlier, like there was good stuff and then it really dropped off a cliff at certain points. Like any of the scene that was supposed to be like a hinted romance between those two was like, oh my God, total cringe. Even though I like both of those actors in their roles for the rest of the movie, it's like, it just feels so forced.
It was also just kind of a mood whiplash, because I think there was like some not so subtle hinting that Catwoman and her roommate were in a relationship with each other, and that's why she's so turned on trying to find her murderer. But then like 4 days after like said lover has died and she's confirmed that she's trying to hook up with Batman. Like, you rebounded fast, but fair enough.
That that doesn't really bode well for her character, or her morality character. I don't know.
But that's where like it felt like they were really trying to set up like 5 movies here. And so they were trying to plant seeds, and it's like that didn't belong in this movie at all. It didn't have anything to do with what this movie was trying to do. You didn't even have to hint at that romance at all. You could just have it, those characters know each other, and then if you want to make the romance part of a movie, then you can do that in a future movie because they know each other. Like there's no need to set it up here.
Yeah. Also, it just kind of like curtails the possible development that you can do with Robert Pattinson as Batman. Like, I don't know, maybe they want to go like the creepy cartoon route and then just like him and Batgirl have a relationship in the future. But then everybody's going to be asking, well, where did Catwoman go?
Yeah.
So I guess one last thing I guess I kind of want your guys' take on. Ranking Batman villains. Where does Riddler place along that?
You got to take them all or nothing, right? I can't just take parts of the movie.
Subtitle, start to finish.
Was he like yelling like with his shrill voice on the phone, like "Woo, Batman"?
Because that's actually like the only part of the character that we really see. Like I guess at the beginning of the movie, you see him kind of in the shadows and that part of him, and then you don't really see the Riddler for most of the movie. You see the result of his things or like a video of him. And so everything where the Riddler actually comes on screen is all pretty bad. But what they hint at the Riddler to be throughout the movie, I thought was quite good.
Yeah, the mental breakdown at the asylum, I think, kind of just ruined it for me, where he was acting like a jilted lover that his like pretend best friend wasn't agreeing with everything that he was saying. Up until that point, I thought he was like relatively sinister, especially in the like the church bombing scene at the funeral. But it kind of went off the rails real quick.
Yeah,
just above Mr. Freeze, really.
Which is too. But you can't make that comparison. Those are two. It's like a movie and a non-movie.
Oh, come on.
But it's. I heard that there was something that came out about this movie that like Paul Dano insisted that one scene got reshot like 100 times so that he could do it just right. And in my head, I'm like, what scene did you need to do 100 times? And that like, what we got was
right,
still only the best you could do.
All right, let's do it again. Batman. Oh, he's low on my list. I mean, almost everyone from the George Clooney movies, the villains are pretty high.
So I guess the hotter take between him and Jim Carrey, who was the better Riddler?
Jim Carrey.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree, honestly.
I
Costume
enjoyed Jim
included?
Carrey much.
Actually,
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, like, yeah, his costume in this movie isn't much to write home about.
Jim Carrey. I feel like Jim Carrey was like the perfect casting for like the true to comics. Well, sorry, I can't say true to comics Riddler, but because I haven't really read them. But how I saw the Riddler in the comics was Jim Carrey, and him like just hamming it up.
I've read a lot of Batman comics. I don't think I've read any like Riddler Batman comics. Now that I think about it. But most of the good versions of the Riddler that I've seen is like him as a much more serious character. Like if you think, especially because the Riddler is supposed to be a more cognitive, smarter character, it's like I don't think of Jim Carrey in that role.
Okay, then I don't know what I'm basing it off of, but that's always how I've seen Riddler. Maybe it's just because how I grew up seeing Riddler was Jim Carrey.
His general appearance, I guess, kind of just like invites like a particular like camp interpretation, which camp can be done right if you see it in a movie. Not to go back to Wonder Woman '84, but like I love Pedro Pascal in that one, and like the sort of over the top character that he played in it as Maxwell Lord. Jim Carrey might be a step too far for me personally, but yeah.
I don't know. Going back to your question, like there's Heath Ledger Joker, there's Tom Hardy Bane, and then there's a very, very far drop off to anyone else. And like
really?
the George Clooney, like the Schwarzenegger and Uma Thurman, like those are entertaining for different reasons. I agree that like Arnold Schwarzenegger nailed that role for what that role was supposed to be. It was not attempting to be Tom Hardy Bane or like Heath Ledger Joker. It was meant to be like silly and entertaining, and it's like they accomplished that, but that's still pretty far different from taking a villain seriously and executing it well.
I'm surprised you put the Tom Hardy Bane, to be honest, that high. Like for me, it's Jack Nicholson Joker right to the top of the list, just for how threatening he is in every single scene. But with Tom Hardy Bane, I don't know. Maybe it's just the internet hate machine kind of got too much into it. But with the voice modulator, I could not take him seriously, especially when like Batman insists on doing the voice like after his identity has been revealed. It's just like, where's the trigger?
I like Dark Knight Rises a lot more than a lot of people do. I think it got a lot of hatred because it came after The Dark Knight and everyone had super high expectations, but it's not as good for sure, but it's still really good.
I will say actually that's one thing that this movie did a lot better than The Dark Knight Rises, just I guess one really, really limited category is that Batman didn't really look as ridiculous during the day, especially because that one scene where in The Dark Knight Rises where he's charging down with a bunch of cops, I'm like, you don't need to have a cape for this right now. But whereas for this one, like, all right, at least like the sort of sepia filtering works a lot better.
That's true, actually. And on that note, I'll never get over the fact that all those cops were completely unarmed and they were running at like a fully like just military unit with tanks.
Now, the real question is that a better portrayal of the Gotham cops than what you got in this movie? Because I got to be honest, like the one I think like takeaway here is just like, wow, this city is completely beyond helping. Like the commissioner, the mayor, the like 500 other cops beneath him are all apparently getting paid off by the mob. Like, why does he even bother?
So this is maybe a bit of a sidetrack, but one of my favorite scenes in this movie, and this is probably not saying much about the movie, is where he has to punch Gordon and then run out the scene and all the cops are chasing him. Like, that's wonderful. Like, everyone seems like they're legitimately like crazy and trying to get him, and that the cops hate him, and that felt like old school Batman to me. Like, I love that like short 30-second scene.
Yeah, it was fine. Like even starting with when he first wakes up and there's like a mob of cops like around him and he's just like trying to fight them off.
Meanwhile, no one thought to take his mask off the entire time that he was unconscious.
Yeah.
Maybe he had the Christian Bale sparkly thing.
Gotham's cops are clearly not the best and brightest ever.
They weren't even really taking that much in bribe money. It was probably like $50 a week, and that's all they took.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to end this episode off. We will once again provide you zero prep time for what our closing section of our podcast is, which is what movie coming out soon are you looking forward to watching? I will go first while I give you guys time, some quick time to Google this. Mine is a bit of a cheat. The Northman just came out online. I basically don't count theatrical releases anymore because I can't go to the theater, but The Northman is basically a new release to me, and so that is online, and that was my number one most anticipated movie of 2021, and then when it didn't come out, I think it was number 4 on my 2022 most anticipated list, so I finally get to see it, and even though a lot of people are saying it's like a hero film for white supremacists, I'm still going to try to enjoy it anyway.
What?
I don't know. I read a few articles where they're like, does The Northman just appeal to white supremacists? I was like, oh, I don't know.
That's an interesting take, considering all the weird like King Arthur movies we've had in the last couple of years, but all right.
But anyway, I'm still looking forward, and I did hear that this is the first movie that Robert Eggers did not have final cut on the movie. So with Lighthouse and The Witch, he had full creative control over those movies. This one he did not. But he said when he shot the movie, he made a point of only shooting every scene with one camera so that the studio couldn't fuck him over and completely change the movie. He basically gave them no choice, so still looking forward to
That's
it.
pretty cool. I respect that.
Smart move, yeah.
Christoph, are you ready? I could probably go.
Off the top of my head, I haven't really been keeping track, I guess, on new releases, but the one that caught my eye was Crimes of the Future, the David Cronenberg movie that I think is coming out in a month or two. Just the general like transhumanism stuff I think is kind of nice in terms of pushing the envelope of what cannot be shown on screen, especially considering the body horror industry kind of went like the way of the human centipede, and I think kind of needs to be redeemed a little bit. And separate from that, I mean, just like the cast is a very weird combination of people that I just can't ever really see interacting together. So I'm kind of curious as to how that pulls off between like Viggo Mortensen and then Léa Seydoux, who I've only known as either like a Bond girl or like a lipstick lesbian. And I'm not really sure how she's going to fit into like body modification and mutilating herself.
And Kristen Stewart.
Yeah, I tried to forget that part. Personal Shopper was the biggest like hour and a half of my life I'm never getting back.
Those movies of that and Clouds of Sils Maria are like why I like Kristen Stewart as an actress now.
Future episode potential.
I just like that, and this is a bit sidebar, but we're talking about Robert Pattinson. It's like they went from like the worst teen movies that everyone made fun of, and they could have just jumped into some other thing. And they went the total indie road to like rebuild their career, and now they're doing quite well at it. So I respect the hell out of Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson for like taking that approach in their career and actually pulling it off.
Yeah. This kind of cheating because this was on my top 10 most looking forward to this year list, but the Nope is coming up pretty soon. The Jordan Peele movie, which I don't think anyone knows what it's about. People are just flying into the sky for some reason, or like getting pulled up into the sky. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
So this reminds me of like a question I was asking myself the other day, because I forget what movie I watched, but I was kind of realizing that, like, well, not a new realization, but every franchise we love is ruined now. Like Star Wars is ruined. Star Trek now with the TV shows is ruined. Ghostbusters is dead. Like everything that we loved has been killed. And I just wonder if in 20, 30 years, what are the franchises being created now that kids in 20 and 30 years are going to be like, these are amazing franchises that were developed new? Because when I think about Jordan Peele, I'm like, nope, it's like he's creating new ideas. Yeah, even though they're like heavily inspired by other things, it's like, I was just thinking about like, what are the movies coming out now that are fresh, original ideas that are actually going to last 30 years, get bought over by a corporation, and then get absolutely ruined, pushed into the ground.
First of all, I largely disagree with that first part of what you said. Still,
every single franchise is ruined. Every single one. It's a contentious point.
What's a franchise that's doing just as well as it was 30 years ago?
Jurassic Park.
Okay, that's fair.
It's a hot take. Yeah, it works. I will fight you on Star Trek, only just because 30 years ago that franchise was like not even on life support. It was on like palliative care. And also the newer series with Anson Mount, if anyone hasn't seen it, is significantly better than all the other TV series put together.
Which one?
Strange New Worlds. I think
New World.
Oh yeah, 2 weeks ago.
I've been going off of reviews I've seen for Picard and the other Star Trek, and it looks pretty bad.
Yeah, Picard could have. It was better if that was not made. Let's say that way.
But going back to your question, I mean, I had a really good one that I was thinking of a few days ago, but I can't remember it now. Maybe Fast and Furious, that'll be rebooted and run into the ground in 30 years.
But it's already dead. Like it's not like they made 3 movies that were great and will be remembered and then they'll come back. It's like they already used it all up.
I don't know. They're still making a killing somehow.
They also remastered that franchise in like 3 different directions, because we started off with like gearheads to like heists to like spy movies. Now I'm not even sure where we landed, but
yeah.
Arguably Harry Potter, if we don't count like Fantastic Beasts and everything it's put us through, and I think like the 3 times recasting of its main villain or whatever we're on now.
Yeah, no, they could. It's not dead yet. They have hope for it.
Maybe we'll see a remake of Saving Private Ryan. That'll be just completely horrible. It'll be like a big dumb action movie in 20 years.
It's like I don't think studio can let a franchise be well known and successful without ruining it for a 30-year period. Like Matrix, it took them like 10 years. 10, 15 years, and then they had to come back and ruin it. It's like that they wouldn't. Long gone are the days of like, that's a good trilogy, let's just leave it like that.
But it was so good. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a good next episode topic. What do we see these the reboots for some of the current franchises looking like in 30 years? Or we could even just pitch them to the studios, right? Like ourselves.
Done. I'm going to come up with a pitch for this.
Finally, the Lethal Weapon remake we've all envisioned.
Stranger Things, the movie with the kids' kids.
Oh, God.
In the 2000s.
Let's end it there.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in for another episode, and we will be back again next month.